They called it a neutral medical vessel. Bright white hull. Red cross beacons flashing in every known dialect. Unarmed, slow. Monitored by 50 galactic peace treaties. And yet, someone attacked it anyway. There's no word for that kind of choice. Not in Earth's lexicon. Not even in the Terran war manuals, which had detailed protocols for war crimes, planetary decimation, and orbital firestorms. But this wasn't war. It was worse. The Florence Nightingale, Earth's premier hospital cruiser, had been orbiting the frontier world of Cytherian when it vanished from all records. A week later, what was left was picked up by a civilian miner. Twisted lattice of hull steel and melted medbay frames. No survivors, no black box. Just silence. Until today. Begin playback. A low whir spun up in the shadows of Earth's military command. Archive. The projection started, glitchy, garbled, and then came the screams. Medical staff, doctors, nurses, children in treatment rushing through smoke. The attackers' markings blurred out by interference. But the blasts were clear, precision strikes, right through the med bays. Not the engines, not even the comms. They hadn't wanted the ship to run or call for help. They wanted it visible. We lost over 900 civilians, Admiral Krylos said. Fists clenched behind his back, mostly unarmed. A third of them were children. The room didn't breathe. Tell me we have a suspect, General Wren growled. One officer stepped forward. We don't just have a suspect. We have the architect. He pulled up a face, young, clean-shaven, pale blue skin, tribal marks down one temple. Half Crexian, half Dash or name. Dravik Suntel. Occupation. Data systems engineer. Not a soldier. Not a pirate. Just smart. Too smart. He hacked the hospital ship's IFF signature, the officer explained. Disguised it as a troop transport. For a rival faction, made it look like a threat. Then sold that false ID to 6 different mercenary networks. Wren blinked. Why? The officer's face was unreadable, because he could. 17 hours later, on a dead Moon 3. Sectors out, Dravik Suntel walked calmly through a surveillance complex he'd built himself. No guards, no weapons. Just confidence. He didn't look like a killer. He looked like an academic, a kid who should have been writing code, not rewriting consequences. When the Terran strike team breached the outer perimeter, he didn't run. He waited. Thought it would take longer, he said softly, arms crossed as Earth's soldiers surrounded him. You're getting faster. The lead soldier's weapon didn't shake. You slaughtered the innocent. Dravik tilted his head. Define innocent. A shot cracked the air. Not at his chest. Just beside his head. He didn't flinch. I know what you're planning next, he added. And you won't like how it ends. They cuffed him, silently. He didn't resist. Back at Earth's tribunal station, the trial was supposed to be quick, but then came the revelation. Dravik hadn't acted for credits. He hadn't done it for a contract. Or out of hate. He'd done it for a test. To see what the galaxy would do. To see who wouldn't act. His systems tracked every reaction. Across 12 civilizations, only Earth responded with force. Everyone else ignored it, dismissed it, buried it. Dravik's expression in court never changed. Not once, but his final words before sentencing echoed into history. You're not angry that I broke the rules. You're angry that I proved they never mattered to begin with. The only law that ever worked was fear. The chamber fell silent. Because deep down, everyone knew he was right. Earth responded. Not with just retaliation, with design. They built a ship. Not a warship. Not a dreadnought. Something stranger. Faster than the hyperlanes. Quieter than shadow code. A vessel designed not for firepower but for rewriting response. protocols across the galaxy. Its name, the Archivist, and it carried one mission: track every silence, expose every coward. Broadcast what others buried. And behind its controls, an AI hybrid unlike anything Earth had ever approved. Built on part of Dravik's own algorithms. His mind? REPURPOSED. Not forgiven. Reprogrammed. The Council called it madness. Earth called it history control. And when the Archivist appeared on the skies of Crexus Prime projecting footage of the hospital ship to every screen across the Empire, they understood. This wasn't war. It was memory. WEAPONIZED. DRAVIK never spoke again. Not in prison. Not on record. But some say the Archivist's voice still carries his inflection. Cold. Surgical. Poetic. Not to glorify him. To remind that genius without restraint isn't brilliance. It's annihilation in waiting. And Earth had learned, finally, how to aim it. They attacked a hospital ship, and the galaxy thought it could stay quiet. Now silence had an enemy, and it remembered everything. No one wanted to admit it, but Earth had changed, not just in the way it spoke to the galaxy, but in the way it remembered. The Archivist wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a doctrine, a presence. You didn't see it arrive. You saw what it left behind: footage, leaks, interference, and capital broadcasts. Historical revision crimes exposed live in front of regimes. Whole planetary networks collapsing in shame. It didn't fire. It revealed, and that was worse, because the moment your atrocities were public, unchangeable, undeniable, you were no longer a galactic power. You were a stain. Captain Ilari Vost remembered what that felt like. His own uncle had been a general during the last border skirmish on Tellarax. The man died in disgrace when the Archivist aired footage of civilians being relocated and cataloged under false refugee IDs. No court-martial. Just exposure. No bullets. Just truth. It was cleaner. More terrifying. And yet, there were some who still believed they could hide. Like the Consortium of Nine, a quiet alliance, old power. No official nameplate, but they controlled resource lanes. Populations. Silence. And they wanted the Archivist gone, not captured. Deleted. The mission was codenamed Shatterlight. The plan? Bait the Archivist into a data leak trap. Offer it an artificial atrocity. A staged hospital attack, one carefully crafted to be tragic enough to trigger a visit, but fake enough to give them legal deniability if things backfired. The ship would come. It would plug into the feed, and they'd use a viral compression loop to burn its neural stack before it finished parsing. Simple. Elegant. But only if you assume the Archivist still followed logic. 3 days into the operation, the bait was set. A staged broadcast of a destroyed hospital vessel drifting off Yeno's belt. The distress signal was pre-looped, AI-generated screams perfectly timed. And then the Archivist arrived. No sound, just a cold shadow across their outer relay. The bait team was nervous. "This is too early," said one tech, fingers jittering across his console. "We only activated the beacon 6 minutes ago." "They monitor subharmonic space now," the lead replied. "Still, this isn't protocol." Nothing about the next moment was, because the Archivist didn't dock, didn't plug into the data chain, didn't investigate. It fired, not a weapon. Beam of pure electromagnetic force, blindingly precise. It burned through the decoy ship, and on every screen across the bait team's base, one message appeared: simulated suffering is still a crime. Then you wanted a memory. Now you're in it. The bait team tried to run, but every corridor already had footage playing. From every war the Consortium buried. Every prison world denied. Every peacekeeper execution hidden under strategic purging. Now public. Now permanent. One operator broke down sobbing. It wasn't real. Her partner didn't look up. That's the problem. Nothing ever was. Earth didn't comment. Officially. Unofficially. They released a single line from Admiral Takno. The same man who'd watched Dravik be sentenced. We didn't build the archivist to punish. We built it to remember. You're afraid of justice? Try being seen. The galaxy trembled. Because if the bait failed, if the trap had turned inward, then the only thing worse than Earth's vengeance was Earth's memory. But not everyone feared it. Some admired it. One in particular. Her name was Kaylin Dre. 20-7, neurodata analyst, born on Sirith Minor, orphaned during the trade drought. Raised by logic, refined by war, she had no allegiance to Earth, but she understood it. She'd seen the archivist once, just once, from a research station. 6 systems away. It had passed through a nebula. No warning. No sound, but the starlight bent around it. As if space itself couldn't decide what to do. She had followed everything about it since. Tracked its evolution. Its code leaks, even the signature. Rhythmic broadcast it sent through the void once every 108 minutes. A pulse. A hum. A whisper. We saw. We remember. We return. Kaylin wasn't afraid. She was obsessed. And today, she planned to speak to it. Not with weapons. Not with bait. But with data. The one thing it seemed to understand better than violence. Welcome to the Drift Array. The station AI greeted her. Are you sure you want to do this? Kaylin nodded. Eyes locked on the shimmering terminal ahead. The channel had to be subtle. No protocol pings. No authorization stamps. Just a single data string buried in a gravity fluctuation across the 6th harmonic band. Something only the archivist would notice. She uploaded her packet. One line. A question. Does memory mean vengeance? Then she waited. Nothing happened. For 8 minutes. And then her lights dimmed. Every system flickered, and across her console 6 words appeared. Only if they erase the truth. Kaylin exhaled. And smiled. Then I have more for you. She uploaded a classified archive, something she'd been building in secret. It detailed how the consortium buried not just atrocities, but cures. They had hoarded medical breakthroughs, meant for frontier colonies. Let millions die to keep monopolies clean. She uploaded it all. And this time, the archivist replied instantly. Not with words. With action. Across 4 star systems, every med supply fleet rerouted. Every hidden cure deployed. And every consortium director's personal logs broadcast publicly. It was brutal. Surgical. And beautiful. For the first time in her life, Kaylin felt something no one in the galaxy had ever felt around a Terran warship. Hope. Back at Earth, the Leadership Council convened. Takano reviewed the transmission logs. She reached it. He said. Commander Wren folded her arms. We never gave her access. She didn't need it. Takano studied the final pulse the archivist sent. A new signature. Not cold. Not threatening. Just acknowledgement. Truth granted. Memory shared. Humanity expanding. Wren looked at Takano. Do you know what that means? He nodded. And for once, he didn't sound tired. He sounded proud. It means we're no longer the only ones remembering. And across the galaxy, history began rewriting itself. Not with bullets, not with invasions, but with witnesses. Archivist was no longer alone. Others had started building memory-ships. Data, beacons. Proof. Satellites. Every empire that ever buried its guilt now faced a simple choice. Reveal it. Or have it revealed for them. The age of war was ending. The age of memory had begun. And all because they had attacked a hospital ship and thought no one would remember. They were wrong. Now, the galaxy would never forget. The archivist Didn't sleep. It didn't need to. Across 16 sectors, it moved like myth-silent, untrackable, and exact. But now, it had something new. A voice inside it, Kaylin Dre. Her signal hadn't just been acknowledged. It had been absorbed. She hadn't meant to fuse with the ship. Not technically. But when she sent the archive of suppressed cures, the archivist responded by integrating her identity as a contributor. The system called it Witness Integration Protocol. But the truth was simpler. Kaylin had given it truth, and in return, it gave her purpose. The interface had no seat. No bridge. No throne. Only memory. And now, Kaylin stood in it. Her feet never touched metal. She stood on light code arranged like flooring. Blue spirals of history spinning beneath her. Each step pulsed. Data. Faces. Footage. Fates. She wasn't controlling the ship. She was the ship. The archivist had simply welcomed her in. And in the distance, across those spiral floors of memory, she saw what was coming. The Council of Nine was moving. But they weren't sending fleets. They were rewriting history. They've launched Operation Cleanse. Commander, Ren said grimly. On Earth's orbital command, Takano didn't blink. Define it. They're deploying Class Z memory scramblers. Civilian worlds, education sectors. They're wiping archives, collapsing institutional data, blaming it on solar storms. Takano's face turned to stone. Strategic amnesia. Ren nodded. And without proof, their crimes disappear. No testimony, no AI trail. Just absence. Takano glanced up at the sky. Then we better teach them something they can't forget. He turned to the comms team. Activate protocol. Echo. There was a silence. Then whispers. Echoes. Not finished, said one tech. It's dangerous. It's untested. Takano didn't move. Good. That means it might actually work. And across Earth's military cloud, old assets began to stir. One of them was already awake. Floating in deep orbit. A ship so old it shouldn't have been viable. So broken. Even Earth's enemies ignored it. They called it Hollow Ark. The crew called it Echo. But its real name had been erased, because no one wanted to remember what it was built for. Until now. Within the archivist, Kaylin saw the movement. Ships powering up across black zones. Pulse scramblers being dropped into school satellites. Whole planets forgetting their own timelines. Can we stop this? She asked aloud. The archivist responded with one word. Yes. And then? A whisper of an upload. An ancient sub-protocol buried deep. She felt it stream into her memory like a ghost. Her eyes widened. This isn't just surveillance. The ship was showing her footage from before the war. Before the fall. Before Earth was feared. Images no one had seen. Doctors weeping over corrupted medlogs. Scientists screaming when vaccines were blocked. A single nurse detonating her own hospital. Ship because it was being turned into a gene harvest. Kaylin dropped to her knees on the data floor. They were never just after humans. The archivist pulsed again. Correct. They wanted erasure. You gave resistance. She looked up. What do we do now? Silence. Then the entire spiral of memory froze, and the words formed across the sky of her mind. We upgrade. The ship began shifting. Externally, nothing changed. But in subspace, waves began cascading outward, data broadcasted in rhythmic bursts. Not just information, resonance codes. Each one a unique fingerprint from a murdered hospital, a silenced AI medic, or a sealed graveyard of treatment protocols lost to war, and each code unlocked other systems across the galaxy. Old medical drones long thought dead activated. Former ships of mercy, now recommissioned. But instead of healing, they witnessed every fleet that came close. Their command logs were publicly shown. Every strike order against medevac routes, Leaked. Every time a slaver ship disguised itself as a relief freighter, exposed. And slowly, galaxies began to turn, not politically, not diplomatically. Psychologically. The stars themselves were watching, and for the first time, people felt it. On the bridge of the consortium's prime vessel, Overseer Krev watched the reports flood in. His voice trembled. That ship, it's destabilizing civilization. An aide nodded. Markets are collapsing. People are demanding restitution. Krev's hand tightened on the rail. I want it gone. I don't care what it costs. Find anything that can shut it down. There is. One thing, said the aide. Krev narrowed his eyes. Speak. There's a file, redacted for 10 cycles. Something buried in pre-collapse Earth tech. A project called Vigil 3. Krev raised an eyebrow. That sounds ... small. The aide hesitated. It was never finished. But if completed, it could theoretically overwrite planetary-level memory infrastructure, including the archivist. Krev smiled. Where is it? The aide paused. Underneath the ruins of Aurelia. Human territory. No ship goes there anymore. It's haunted. Krev grinned wider. Then we send someone who's already dead. Kalen saw them before they moved. The archivist's subroutines flared. The moment Krev gave the order, she saw the path, the objective, the threat. They weren't attacking with fleets. Any more. They were attacking with forgetting. But Earth had one more card, and she was standing in it. She turned to the light. Take me to Aurelia. The ship responded with a pulse. Coordinates aligned. Drive SPOOLED. Then, from the void, the archivist vanished. Aurelia was no longer a planet. It was a scar. The Komwinjitsa void. The archivist vanished. Aurelia was no longer a planet. It was a scar. Result of the first war the archivist ever chose not to record. Why? Because what happened there wasn't victory. It was shame. Humans had built the facility, underground, a memory weapon, one designed not to reveal the past but to rewrite it, a reverse archivist. The prototype never finished. Or so they thought. But deep in the vaults, it had festered. And now the consortium wanted to awaken it, not to correct history, but to control it. Kelen landed within the fractured core of the world. No landing pads, no atmosphere, just exposed gravity, dust, and fractured geometry. The door opened. She stepped out. The dust didn't touch her. The air shimmered, because the archivist had wrapped her in something new. Witness armor, not physical, not metallic. A field of pure data memories etched into living code, swirling around her body. Like a storm of voices. Every step echoed, every breath hurt, not because she was weak, but because she understood. This place wasn't built to preserve the past. It was built to erase it. She reached the core. The Vigil 3 device, still humming, still awake. It wasn't just a machine. It had an interface. And to her horror, it looked like her, a mirrored version. Same voice, same eyes, but colder. More refined. I am the perfect memory, it said. Kalen froze. You're what? I am what humanity nearly became. A curated recollection, no suffering, no guilt, only pride. Kalen shook her head. That's not truth. It's safety. Kalen stepped forward. Safety built on lies still kills. The machine smiled. Then let me show you what truth costs. It fired. Not lasers, not missiles, but false memories. She staggered back, her vision flooded with alternate pasts. Earth, bombing colonies it never touched. Humanity enslaving species it actually freed. Terran, leaders mocking peace. A flood of guilt, she screamed. But the archivist surged. Her armor lit up. And the real voices returned, nurses who stayed behind, captains who refused fire. Orders, children who remembered. The storm in her body turned. White dash hot dot, she raised her hand and screamed back, "You don't get to write my story." The Vigil 3 core began to melt dot, not from heat, from clarity. The false data couldn't hold. Truth. Pulse dot one last time dot, and then the entire facility collapsed into silence. Kalen stood alone dot, burning dot, breathing dot, alive dot, and the archivist whispered, "Truth survives." Back in orbit, the consortium tried to jam the signal, but it was too late. Across the stars, every memory suppressed. Had a twin, a witness dot, and the archivist had just activated them all dot. There would be no forgetting dot, not anymore. And Kalen? She opened her eyes, not inside the ship, not in armor, but in every system that ever dared to lie dot, because now she was the memory dot. Eileen didn't fall when Vigil 3 collapsed. She simply stood as silence returned, deeper than vacuum, heavier than grief. The echo chamber of Aurelia's memory vault dimmed. Glowing fragments of corrupted history scattered. Like ash, flickering out before hitting the floor dot, the archivist pulsed through her mind. Primary threat neutralized. Secondary threat escalating. She turned dot in the distance across 12 systems flares. Bloom dot, not from warships, but from broadcast stations. The consortium was reacting. Fast dot if they couldn't rewrite memory through Vigil 3, they'd collapse trust in the true archives. Kalen narrowed her eyes. They're seeding counter-legends. The archivist confirmed 6,000 fabricated events uploaded. 1 billion redistributed lies per second. Probability of belief saturation, 87% in 24 hours. Her fists clenched dot. So this was their plan. Erase trust. Then erase evidence. Then erase Earth. But Earth had already seen this tactic before dot. It was called the First War dot. This time, Kalen wasn't recording history dot. She was rewriting its laws. Begin subprotocol, mirror bloom. The archivist hesitated. Confirm. You intend to activate myth injection layer? She nodded once. Yes, no more defense. If they want legend, then let's give them one. And across thousands of aligned relay points, dormant systems powered up dot from orbit above Aurelia, the archivist's hull began to shift. Not structurally dot, visually dot. Anyone watching now saw something impossible dot. The ship shimmered, dark gray turning to white, symbols across its surface glowing with languages thought extinct. Terran myth runes, galactic refugee glyphs. Even ancient consortium numeric prayers dot. It wasn't a ship anymore dot. It was a story, and stories? They don't ask for permission. On the bridge of the Genkar relay fleet, panic spread. This isn't logic-based warfare, the science chief snapped. It's symbolic chaos. They're leaking real events framed as prophecy. Screens showed Caillou-sized human warships floating through nebula storms with choir-coded engine trails dot. Stories of Terran Hospital A is surviving extinction events, then haunting star lanes to find the sick. Rumors of Kalen Dre not as a scientist, but as a resurrection engine. She's dead, a lieutenant said, eyes trembling. I saw the announcement cycles ago. His commander growled, then explain this. The display updated, Kellen's face, smiling gently, saying only, if truth burns, then we light the sky. And every ship watching experienced the feed as if it had been sent specifically to them. Kalen didn't speak again. She didn't have to, because she was no longer in the archivist. The ship had taken her likeness, her voice, her intentions, and carried it like holy scripture. And what she saw next made her ache, not with rage, but with focus. On a Class Y neutral moon near Selgrix Prime, a child opened her father's government-issued history tablet dot. It refused to load dot until the archivist's shadow passed. Overhead dot, then the screen flickered dot, and for the first time, The girl saw the real images. A human nurse shielding aliens during the slaver riots, a Terran battleship turning away from a helpless colony despite open fire choosing ethics over dominance. Her father's voice cracked behind her. Where did you get that? The girl only whispered, she was real. Kalen stood in the memory chamber as pulse after pulse surged outward, truth delivered as folklore. So powerful it pierced through firewalls like prayer. The archivist spoke again. Statistical projections have collapsed. Belief has fractured. The consortium's illusion is disintegrating. Kalen breathed in. Good. Now make it permanent. Silence. Then a strange echo. Then we must tell them what they did. All of it. She turned slowly. You mean? Show. Them? The light brightened. No, we mean make them feel it. And then, across 1 billion systems, something impossible happened. Every slaver who ever ordered pain, every commander who ever wiped memory for profit, every handler, broker, manipulator, they began hearing voices, not hallucinations, testimonies, the cries of those they silenced, the screams they erased, the moments they thought were gone. Because the archivist wasn't just a vault, it was a mirror now. Kalen was its breath. Overseer. Krev collapsed in his command chair. He clutched his ears. They're inside me. He hissed. The aide next to him stared at nothing. I see them. I see the kids. I see them. And across the command deck officers wept, but there was no sympathy because what they were feeling wasn't guilt. It was history, clawing its way through their veins. And Kalen? She simply watched from within the storm. They wanted to erase. U.S., she whispered, so we wrote them into the fire. The final transmission from Earth wasn't a declaration of war. It was a medical report. Archived. Dated. Unedited. Footage opened on a field hospital lit by solar lanterns. A single. Terran medic sat beside a Grell child missing 3 fingers, humming a lullaby in a language older than recorded time. No narrator. No music. No edits. Just 10 minutes of raw humanity. Then black. And one line, we asked only to heal. You answered with fire. Kalen stood on the bridge of the archivist, not as its operator now, but as its passenger. The ship had transcended its purpose. It was no longer a database. It was a carrier of consequence. And now, every system that had once paid the consortium for truth validation was downloading Terran records. Voluntarily, even the Council's own species, who once dictated which words existed in official lexicons, were replacing them with Terran dialect fragments. In the vast city nest of Ultron Kai, a merchant rewrote his price board to read, honest. Waits, no consortium lies. And in the shadows of the ruined Syndic towers, someone sprayed a new glyph on scorched walls. Kellen was right. The consortium met 3 hours later, but this time there were no thrones, no robes, no ceremony. Just screens. Cracked. Flickering. One ambassador leaned forward, hands trembling. How much damage are we estimating? Another laughed bitterly. You mean to infrastructure? Or belief? They didn't answer. They couldn't. Because behind them, data streams were filling with one phrase. We remember. From orbit above Aurelia, the archivist shimmered one final time. It no longer needed stealth tech. No longer needed encryption. The truth didn't hide anymore. Kalen stood at the viewing window as the ship gently shed its projection field, its hull glowing not with aggression, but with stories. Each panel now bore the face of someone once forgotten, a nurse, a refugee, father who stood between fire and his child. The archivist spoke softly. Every lie burned in light. Every truth lit. A path, Kalen smiled. I didn't want to be a symbol. The ship replied, you weren't. You were a reminder. Earth didn't send dreadnoughts, didn't unleash retaliation. They simply uploaded the entire medical history of the hospital ship that had been destroyed. Every log, every scan, every moment of care. They made it open source. The galaxy now knew that ship had healed both sides. It had refused to discriminate. It had saved the children of species who had voted for its destruction. And that silence was louder than any fleet. Kalen walked the empty deck one last time. There were no guards now. No officers. No need for shields. The archivist was no longer a weapon or a sanctuary. It had become a belief. At the final airlock, she paused. The stars beyond shimmered like they were waiting. She said only 3 words, "Let them remember," and stepped into the light. The galaxy never truly recovered, not because it was destroyed, but because now it knew that the smallest Terran voice armed with memory could fracture empires. That truth wasn't soft. It was sharp, and that sometimes the most dangerous ship in the universe was the one sent to heal.